Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're talking Love is Blind Season 6, specifically about everyone's favorite villain, Chelsea, aka Megan Fox Girl. Because although I've seen a lot of people talking about her online and sharing how much they hate her, I haven't seen a lot of YouTubers try to cover Chelsea and Jimmy's relationship with as much depth and analysis as I'd like to. So let's do it. After all the proposals and the pods, all the new couples get to go on this honeymoon vacation together and end up going to this soiree where they get to meet all the other couples and contestants on the show in person for the first time. The girls are finally meeting the guys are finally meeting the girls, they're meeting each other's partners, it's all exciting. When, in the middle of this alcohol-infused night, Jimmy makes this comment to Chelsea.
That woman is absolutely stacked. AD.
Mistake number 1. Now, I think we can all agree that's a pretty weird comment to make, especially to your partner. I'm guessing that from Jimmy's perspective, maybe him and his friends talk like that, or he's been in previous relationships where you just talk shit to each other and no one sees it as a problem. And maybe if the roles were reversed and Chelsea was making those kind of comments about another guy, like, oh my god, you see how handsome and muscular and buff that guy's, like, whoa. Maybe Jimmy really wouldn't care and be like, oh yeah, that guy, super buff and handsome, like, I'd date him. He may really not see a problem with that. But I don't think it takes a lot of social savviness to recognize that maybe not everyone else thinks like me. Maybe I'm cool with that comment, but maybe my partner, who I only just met 2 weeks ago and now we're getting married, maybe they wouldn't like that. I'm gonna keep that one to myself. And that's especially true for Jimmy because it's pretty clear Chelsea is pretty insecure. Up until this scene, we've already seen her ask him at least 10 times, like, do you still like me? Do you find me attractive? Like, are we okay?
Yeah, I love you. You haven't said it. You said it like briefly.
If you want me to yell, I love you. I love you.
Do it.
It's pretty clear that making a comment about another woman's body like that, to Chelsea in particular, probably not gonna go that well. But, to my surprise, Chelsea actually handles it like a total champ. She immediately plays along and laughs and is like, oh, AD? Bookshelf.
AD.
Bookshelf.
I say that in the most respectful.
Babe, you can say whatever you. She's a bookshelf.
Her ass is ridiculous, like that's amazing. Hey, yo, AD, how'd you get a butt that big?
AD, hey, how you get a butt like that? Squats and Jesus, girl.
And now AD's involved, and Chelsea and AD are talking about how big AD's butt is, and the whole time Jimmy is now pretty embarrassed, and is now trying to save face, like, I meant it perfectly, respectfully, like, I didn't mean anything by it, you know, just appreciating.
I said it in the most respectful way, so.
I'm crying.
But even then, Chelsea, totally cool, says that don't even worry about it, nothing you said was offensive, like, we're all just playing around, and I said it, you don't even say, I said that she had a big butt, so it's okay that you said it.
I didn't take it offensive. I'm sorry.
That just happened. Embarrassing me.
I'm okay with that, though.
And now that the ice has been broken and everyone's all buddy-buddy, Jimmy then goes and talks to AD. Mistake number 2. Now, if you haven't watched the show before and you just saw the scene, you might think that everything is going just fine. However, you could not be more wrong. So Jimmy and AD get to talking, and it's mostly a fine conversation. Jimmy does say a lot of good things here, tells AD how great of a connection he has with Chelsea, how he feels very lucky, you know, they're just having a great connection. So he is being mostly appropriate and reasonable, but he does make a couple comments like how he's dressing and kind of jokes about wanting to look good, and then says, wow, you know, AD, you know, you got the message, you know, you're looking good.
You got style, but like, I bet you none of these dudes notice at all.
It did sound like light flirting to me, but if Jimmy's the kind of guy who thinks it's okay to make those comments to his partner in the first place, then he probably thinks it's okay and reasonable to talk like this. Meanwhile, while the two of them are talking, Chelsea, now with no one else to talk to, grabs a drink at the bar nearby and starts eavesdropping.
Can I do another tequila soda, please? Thank you so much.
But Chelsea's super cool with everything, so this is totally fine. Right? Right? Wrong, because Laura comes over and Chelsea tells her that she's uneasy and feeling sick with worry.
I want to puke.
Yeah, just keep drinking. I'm sure that'll help. And after a few more minutes of eavesdropping, Chelsea says she can't take it anymore and skedaddles over to the beach with Laura, where Chelsea tells us, Laura, what just happened. But with 2 noticeable changes.
He was like, AD, she's looking good.
Jimmy's comment that AD is stacked changed to AD is looking good. Which, maybe that's the same thing. Maybe that's how Jimmy meant it, but I'm guessing he would disagree with that and would defend himself by saying, no, I'm not saying that she was attractive or that I was attracted to her. I was just observing objectively that she just has a large rump.
I said it in the most respectful way.
But maybe not. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit and he actually was trying to tell his partner that another woman was particularly attractive. Again, that's part of the problem with making asinine comments like that. You're just asking for problems. And the second difference to the story, and this is a hugely important point, which comes up more later, is that she actually wasn't comfortable with that comment, was just playing along, and was just trying to make an uncomfortable situation more comfortable.
And I called her out. I was like, yeah, AD, like, you are looking good. Like, how you get a butt like that? Like, kind of making an uncomfortable situation more comfortable.
So, just to be clear, everything we just saw from Chelsea, the laughing, the smiling, the saying it wasn't offensive, that Jimmy is fine, nothing is wrong, that whole thing where she seemed super cool with everything and had no problems, all of that was a performance. Chelsea does not actually feel that way. That was just her reaction to the discomfort. According to her, at least. Some people online believe this was a deliberate misleading on her end to later gaslight him, but...
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.
And as misleading as her behavior is, I actually understand if that was her reaction in the moment. I think for her, reacting like that is kind of like a nervous laughter, just times 10. We've all been in those social situations where maybe someone you don't really like or don't feel super comfortable with, maybe they're talking to you and they make kind of a joke that maybe you don't really agree with. Maybe it's someone at a party or some kind of weird guy at the bus and you don't really want to deal with it. You don't want to escalate the situation. You're kind of panicked because you're like, what is even going on right now? And maybe your reaction in that moment is the nervous laughter, like, hey, yeah. You don't necessarily mean it, but your goal in the moment is kind of just to placate or just get the situation over with. If we believe Chelsea, it sounds like maybe that was her reaction, and when Jimmy makes the comment, yo, AD's so stacked, instead of her going, yeah, she instead amplifies it by 10 and is like, oh my, yeah, that's so funny. Wow, she really does have a big ass. Like, AD, you have such a big ass. It's the times 10. And after explaining everything that happened from her perspective to Laura, she then says she's not feeling great about the whole relationship and doesn't want to be in a relationship where she's constantly questioning things.
But I don't want to be in a relationship where I have to question. Yeah, no. Like, you don't question it. Like, I don't like that feeling.
I'm going to respond to that comment in more depth later because, would you believe it, that's actually going to come up again quite a few times. But just real quickly, if Chelsea's watching, I believe you. I'm totally with you. It sucks and you don't deserve to be in a relationship where you're constantly questioning if your partner really likes you. I'm with you on that. However, just because you're feeling insecure doesn't necessarily mean that it's someone else's fault. You might just feel insecure and be questioning things because you're scared, because you have your own stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was Jimmy who caused it. I mean, Jimmy did make that asinine comment. It is a little bit his fault, but we'll get to it later. Like I said, this does become a clear pattern with Chelsea, where she assumes that her negative feelings are all Jimmy's fault and then blames him for them. And although we haven't seen her blame Jimmy yet, stick around because she will. So now that we learned a little bit about Chelsea's perspective, let's just quickly summarize what's going on. In Jimmy's perspective, he thinks the night is going amazingly. He's having a good time, he's looking a little liquored up, talking with everybody. He thinks Chelsea is in a good mood, he's talking to AD, everyone is having a great time. But to Chelsea, the evening may have been going kind of okay, but then Jimmy makes this incredibly offensive comment to her that makes her incredibly uncomfortable. Then her partner, after just offending her, then goes and talks to the girl that Chelsea would really rather him not talk to right now. Then she keeps drinking and ruminating on her anxieties and just marinating in a depression stew. Eventually, the conversation between Jimmy and AD ends, and Jimmy, in a great mood, looking a little drunk right now, goes and checks in on Chelsea, who is now hanging out with a few of the other girlfriends.
Can I come hang?
Yeah, come hang. Of course. We got a whole seat.
And that was mistake number 3. You're out, buddy. Because although he probably means well and probably thinks Chelsea is in a just fine mood right now, he starts chatting the girls up and, in a pattern that we've seen a couple examples of by now with Jimmy, talks to them in a mostly appropriate way, a way that he probably thinks is just fine, but maybe not the most appropriate way to go about things. He makes a lot of jokes about their shared dating experiences and jokingly complains that he did not make the other girls' top lists.
No, you were my first date.
Yes, you were my first date.
How hard was it for y'all to narrow 15?
It wasn't hard for me.
Well, that sucks because I didn't make either one of y'all's.
Now, whether or not you found that kind of joking inappropriate, it depends on the person. Some people, like Jimmy, think it's totally fair game, and we all know that we're just joking around, I don't really mean it. And maybe that joke is more funny to more people when you can say that about a thing that happened 5 years ago. But everyone here was dating each other like literally 10 days ago. It's still pretty fresh. And we know by now, Chelsea's not the most secure person. That's probably not the kind of joking that I would assume Chelsea would be okay with. But again, in Jimmy's defense, maybe he wouldn't have made the joke, but after seeing Chelsea react so well to the AD comment, he might think, well, okay, I guess we are on the same page. She is cool, she won't be bothered. Maybe it's not the most socially savvy and aware thing to joke about, but if he was given kind of false information from Chelsea, it's a little bit on her too. Regardless, Chelsea is already feeling pretty insecure right now, and already thinks that Jimmy has made several comments this night to make her feel that way. And after a few more shots of Jimmy looking like he's having the absolute best drunken night of his life, and shots of Chelsea where she looks like she's ready to murder everyone, we skip forward until the party's over and all the respective couples go back to their hotel rooms and reconvene for the night. And that's where all the miscommunications and hurt feelings throughout the night finally come to fruition, and we get the first big fights between Chelsea and Jimmy. The fight starts as soon as they walk through the door, when Chelsea starts repeatedly asking Jimmy if he's okay, even though she's the one that has a problem.
Wrong.
Good. I'm good.
What's wrong?
Nothing's wrong.
Something's wrong?
No, I'm good. I promise.
I think you're lying to me. I think you're lying.
Oh my goodness.
And although that's super annoying, indirect, and unhelpful, I do have a little bit of empathy for her because I know I can be guilty of that too. I can't speak for her, but at least speaking for myself, I was in a long-term relationship with someone who was very volatile, angry, kind of a cold person that wasn't very emotionally available or approachable. And whenever I felt bad or anxious or insecure about something in the relationship, I didn't feel like it was really safe for me to bring up how I felt and talk to them about it. I never felt like I was safe enough to just walk up to them and say, hey, I'm feeling kind of bad, can you reassure me a little bit? Because it felt like every one of my attempts at connecting or expressing myself was met with hostility. And even though that relationship is in the past, to this day, I still can struggle a little bit with being direct with how I feel. If I feel anxious or insecure in the relationship, it's still my mental habit to try to suss out how safe it is to approach my partner. So even though I'm the one with the emotional problem right now, it still feels safer to me to then go, are you okay? Is something bothering you? Is everything okay with you? Nothing's wrong? You don't hate me? And then after hearing them say, no, everything is fine, I'm not mad, like what's going on, then I feel safe enough to go, okay, well, actually, I feel kind of bad. It's a small habit of mine because it's a learned response from previous relationships, but I still know that it's not the most direct or healthy way to do it. Especially the way Chelsea's going about it, because even if Jimmy wasn't mad at her, now that she's asked him 8 times in a row, are you mad? Are you mad? Are you sure? Are you sure? Well, now I'm mad. Now that you keep pestering me, now I'm a little frustrated, yeah. And although I might have an inclination to ask them a few times, I have to recognize myself that this is not their problem. These are my anxieties and worries, and I'm just trying to cope with them the best I can. I certainly can't accuse them of lying.
I think you're lying to me. I think you're lying.
Just like that pattern I talked about earlier with her, of making other people responsible for her feelings. But after asking him the 10th time and accusing him of lying, she finally reveals that she is indeed a little upset. But listen to how she describes what happened.
When everyone else was paying attention to their ladies, I was just standing there by myself the whole time.
Or when you made a comment about AD and her body, and I felt so uncomfortable that I called it out.
And then the whole time you spent talking to AD when I was by myself.
She was so hurt, she had to call it out. She says that very matter-of-factly, as if it would be obvious to everybody that she was so upset that she had to call it out, like the nervous laugh thing. But that's not what we saw, and I don't think that's what Jimmy saw either. She may have been feeling uncomfortable at the time, but for her to assert now that that's clearly what happened, as if Jimmy should know that, feels a little bit like revisionist history. Now, if she instead explained, like, hey, you remember that thing earlier and you said that and I was super cool with it and laughing and joking around, I'm letting you know that that actually wasn't how I really felt. That was just how I reacted at the time. Actually, it kind of hurt my feelings and I was just uncomfortable and I just didn't know what to do, so I played along with it. I know that you probably thought that I was okay with it, but I'm letting you know now that I actually wasn't okay with that. If she were to now explain to Jimmy that she knows she acted one way, but actually felt another way, and is now just informing Jimmy of how she actually felt the whole time, then I think that's okay. But that doesn't sound like what she's doing here, does it? It sounds like she's saying, I was so upset earlier, I had to even act this whole thing out. That was obvious to everybody. That's how hurt I was, as if Jimmy would know that. But like, no, you said you were fine. You were laughing, you were smiling. You even said that nothing he said was offensive and that everything was okay.
I say that in the most respectful.
Babe, you can say whatever she's a bookshelf.
Again, having a nervous reaction like that isn't necessarily a problem. It's okay to feel one way but act another. It only becomes a problem if you don't take responsibility for how you acted and instead make your inconsistencies everyone else's problem. By the way, some people online see this as proof that Chelsea is a manipulative gaslighter. I think there's another explanation for that, but if you want to hear my explanation, then you're just gonna have to stick around to watch the next video. So Jimmy hears all these complaints from Chelsea and is a little confused. Like, where the hell did all this come from? I thought things were fine. And tries to lightly defend himself. He does a good job trying to be supportive and trying to reassure Chelsea. He says, you know, if you're worried about AD, I'm not into her. We had a great conversation. I don't want you to worry about that. I don't think Jimmy really knows why Chelsea is upset right now, so he's just trying to be nice. Which is good. I think Jimmy's doing a good job right now. And he tries convincing her that the conversation with AD went all right and said, well, if you were there, then you would have known that everything we said was fine.
If you heard any context of that conversation, I went up and told Clay.
And Chelsea interrupts and says, okay, but I wasn't there. I didn't hear the whole thing. That I was so uncomfortable that I had to leave.
I didn't though, because I walked away because I was so uncomfortable. That's how like that conversation made me feel.
And if you're Jimmy right now, you're probably thinking, like, okay, but I'm doing everything I can to tell you everything was fine. Like, I don't know what you're worried about, but I don't think you have anything to worry about. See, here's proof that you have nothing to worry about. And then when Chelsea goes, okay, but I wasn't there, so whatever. It's kind of like, okay, what do you want me to say? How do you want me to respond to that you were just uncomfortable? So he has the right answer and says, well,
I mean, if you're uncomfortable, I'm sorry you're uncomfortable.
Which you'd hope would make the situation better, but Chelsea only gets more mad.
It made me feel icky. And I just sat there. Like, it was so uncomfortable for me. And like the fact that you weren't reading the room made me really, really sad.
We're seeing the pattern here, aren't we? Now, I don't know exactly what she's referring to, what specific action she would have liked Jimmy to pick up on. She tried to say she was so uncomfortable that she was sitting by herself at the bar, but Jimmy was already in a conversation and his back was to Chelsea, so he wouldn't have known that. She eventually walked away, but again, what are we supposed to interpret from that? Maybe you're just going off and talking to your friend. And then later on, when Jimmy tries to say hi and talks to all their friends, there is a little bit of that. Chelsea did seem a bit like the odd one out. The other girls were talking and in a good mood, and she was kind of cold and distant and, yep, I'm fine. But even then, Jimmy may have picked up on that because he does reach his hand over and is like, hey, you doing good, Chelsea?
You good?
Oh shit.
Oops, sorry.
Clearly.
So I guess Chelsea might have a very small point there, but this accusation that she has that I'm so hurt that you didn't read the room, that just doesn't feel like a fair criticism for Jimmy. Also, asterisk, this is edited, maybe there were other things that we didn't see that were more obvious. But considering the fact that she considers her amazingly positive reaction to that AD comment, where she was laughing and smiling and saying everything was okay, the fact that she's referring to that as being so uncomfortable that she had to call it out like it was obvious, like everyone was on the same page, sounds kind of distorted. And that makes me wonder, is she just so emotional and worked up right now that she's just being a little unfair and selectively ignoring how she may have played a part in it? Because certainly that is common. We're all capable of doing that sometimes. Or is it that for some reason she legitimately doesn't think she had any responsibility in it and actually 100% believes that she was being direct this whole time and everyone else would agree with her? I do have my own thoughts and a whole theory about it, but you'll just have to wait for part 2. So after Chelsea complains that Jimmy wasn't reading the room, she then walks off and starts crying.
Why are you walking away?
Jimmy follows her, still confused, and asks, why are you walking away? Why are you crying? Like, what's wrong? And she says she's walking away because Jimmy's just gonna try to make her feel bad and blame everything on her.
Chelsea.
Because you're just gonna try and make me feel bad, and
I'm not trying to make you feel
it's my
bad.
fault.
Now, maybe Jimmy is more of a bad guy off camera and does blame her and acts poorly, but at least from what we've seen, we haven't seen anything like that. And when I hear someone who's really upset in a conversation like that, then make an accusation like that, well, I'm running away because you're gonna hurt me, you're gonna yell at me, what, are you gonna hit me? That's usually a tell that has happened in previous relationships. Maybe not, and maybe this is because of Jimmy's behavior in a way that we just haven't seen. But just like how I have a habit of asking are you okay? Is something wrong with you? Because I have a history of being someone who was angry and volatile and didn't respond well to that and often tried to make everything my fault. If something similar happened to her, it would explain why she does the are you okay, something wrong, and might also explain now when she says, well, I'm scared, I brought things up, and now I'm too scared because there's a history there, you're gonna treat me poorly, you're gonna hurt me. That would both point to a possible thing in her past. Not excusing the behavior, just trying to understand it. Then the two of them play a game of whack-a-mole, where it seems that Chelsea is upset, but maybe doesn't know exactly why. She then tries to come up with possible explanations for her insecurity and throws things out there like, well, all the other girls were talking about their amazing connection. And Jimmy interrupts and says, yeah, I also bragged about our amazing connection to everyone. And then she says, well, everyone else was really affectionate and the guys always came up and said hi and like kissed them and stuff, and you didn't. And Jimmy responds again, like, what are you talking about? I kissed you more than anyone else kissed their partner. Like, I showed you a lot of affection, actually. And Chelsea's hearing all that and essentially losing the game of whack-a-mole and kind of throws her hands up and says, okay, well, if everything you say is true, if you're being so great about it, then why do I feel differently?
I felt comfortable. Huh?
I felt so disconnected from you tonight. It was so strange for me. It was odd.
If you're actually being nice and affectionate and all these things, why don't I feel that way? As if her feelings of insecurity right now is proof that Jimmy is actually wrong and that he did do something wrong. See what I mean with the not taking responsibility for one's own feelings thing? But again, if I could speak directly to Chelsea right now and to anyone else who might feel insecure at times and might identify in any way, your feeling of insecurity right now isn't necessarily a reflection of how secure you actually are. It's the same thing with jealousy. You might be very scared that something might happen tonight when your partner goes out to the club, but that doesn't necessarily reflect the likelihood of that actually happening. In fact, I would generally say that how jealous and insecure you are about something maybe happening tonight is oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes less of a reflection of the actual math and probability of what's likely to happen, and more of a reflection of what's happened to you in the past in similar situations. For example, you might be with the perfect partner in the world who's incredibly trusting and faithful and would never ever do anything like that to you. You have mathematically zero things to worry about because that's just not going to happen. But if you've been cheated on in the past, especially by someone who you also thought would never do something like that, then even though you might actually have nothing to worry about right now, you're still probably going to be pretty scared. And similarly, if you've led a life where no one has ever betrayed your trust, everything has been perfectly fine and dandy, usually when you're younger in life, before maybe adverse experiences have happened. Maybe you're 16 and no one's really lied to you a lot and you're a little naive to the possibility that someone might actually cheat on you. You might feel pretty secure, like, okay, yeah, my partner is going out to this party and, I never hear from them and they always come back smelling like the perfume of other girls or something. But no one, he's not going to cheat on me. Like, no one really does that. And then they do cheat on you. Then, in both examples, how secure you might feel in the moments is not a reflection of how secure you actually are, and is instead a reflection of your previous experiences. And that's a very important distinction to make. Because if you don't recognize it, then now you get Chelsea in the present day feeling insecure and wondering, well, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so insecure and like you don't like me? Even though you've said that you've done everything right and you gave me all the attention, you didn't really do that much wrong, it must be your fault. When in reality, no, it's not all Jimmy's fault. Well, actually, it is still a little bit his fault. He still did make that asinine comment, that is on him. But not all of her insecurities and trust issues are all his fault. That's what I'm trying to say. And if Chelsea was listening to this, I'd also go so far as to say it's not her fault she feels that way either. Because like I said, if her feeling of insecurity right now is actually maybe more of a reflection of what happened to her in the past, and she feels insecure and like someone's gonna cheat on her because someone did do that to her in the past, then it's that person who broke her trust that is to blame for her current insecurities. her actions are still her responsibility. We can all understand and have some empathy for maybe how she feels, but if she is completely unaware of those feelings, and instead of taking responsibility for those feelings and how she acts, she just accuses Jimmy constantly and blames him for not knowing things that there's no way he would know, and going as far to say, well, I feel insecure, so you must be lying, that this must be your fault. No, that's on Chelsea. That's ultimately her burden. Okay, so back to the fight. They just finished their game of whack-a-mole, and Jimmy is still trying to convince Chelsea that he does indeed like her. He's been bragging about her all night, and says, even though I have this great opinion on everything that happened, I'm sorry that you don't feel that way.
I'm the luckiest person. I'm the happiest person here. I'm sorry you feel that way, but...
Then Chelsea says thank you, but in kind of a passive-aggressive way.
Thank you for acknowledging how I felt. I didn't feel loved by you. I didn't feel like...
And continues to reiterate that she didn't feel loved by him, which maybe we have a better understanding of now.
You're not inconvenience. I want to be around you. I love being around you.
And Jimmy continues to try to defend himself and say, well, you know, when I talked to you and all the friends, and I was trying to support you and say hi, like, don't you see I was trying to be nice and give you attention? And that's where we learn that Chelsea indeed did not like that. And I will give her some credits. Maybe he didn't read the room there.
Laura,
I love that, but like,
because I wanted to like
the room though, like, these are all people that we dated. You know, like it wasn't just like random friends. It like hurt. It really hurt.
And Jimmy apologizes, and then Chelsea finally brings up the original trigger to this whole thing, the comment he made about AD.
I sat there by myself after you just commented on how great her body was. How was that supposed to make me feel? Babe?
Which, in my opinion, is really the only thing that Jimmy really did wrong tonight. I think all the other things were relatively minor, just miscommunications, things they could have easily handled and said, well, you know, I'm not really comfortable with that. Oh, okay, I guess I am, but okay, we'll meet each other halfway. But this to me is the one thing that's pretty clear. Yeah, you did kind of mess up here, Jimmy. And he tries to explain that, well, I was just so confident with us, and I thought you were so confident with us that this wouldn't bother you. And like I said earlier, I get it. But I mean, with everything else that happened tonight, I feel like this is the one thing that he should just apologize for. And maybe explain what he meant. Like, oh yeah, I wasn't saying I was into her, and you know, this is why I said it. But he did mess up. I think he should just apologize. But instead we get this goofy scene.
I love you with my entire heart, and that's why I'm having this conversation with you. Because it hurt.
Well, like that, I get if it hurts. I just thought that was a given.
But now that they've talked about everything that they possibly could have talked about, and even a few extra things, it looks like Chelsea has calmed down enough to offer an olive branch, because she reaches out her hand to touch Jimmy and bring them closer together, and it looks like the two of them are starting to make up. But then Jimmy stands up for himself a little bit more and says, well, yeah, you know, this whole thing, I know we love each other, but I feel like you're accusing me of not loving you.
I do. I love you.
I feel like you're questioning that I love you.
Which, from what we've seen, seems like an absolutely fair and reasonable assessment of what just happened. It certainly looked that way to me, like she was constantly questioning whether or not he loved her and making everything his fault. And that makes Chelsea upset. And she goes, well, what do you, I was hurt. What do you want me to say? I was hurt. I told you I was hurt. Like, what else am I supposed to do?
Okay, what do you want me to do? I told you that my feelings were hurt. What else do you want me to say? You made me feel uncomfy.
Okay. Well,
so just take it.
Which, I know she's emotional right now and is probably just asking that rhetorically. But if she wants an answer, I do think it's pretty clear that yes, you can absolutely be hurt by things, and you can bring up that you were hurt by things. But you can't use you being hurt as an excuse to blame everyone else for your feelings. You can't accuse Jimmy of things he didn't do, and you can't go into this conversation with the mentality that I feel bad, so it's just gonna be their fault until they've absolutely proven to me that it's not their fault that I feel bad.
But I don't wanna be in a relationship where I have to question. You don't question it, like it's not even like being insecure or like having a complex or whatever.
Like, no, you can just say, hey, I feel bad, I'm insecure, I have a sensitivity to these things, and here is why. I have this past experience, and maybe this isn't fair, but I like you to meet me halfway because I am scared, and I do have these sensitivities, and I don't want to blame you or say that this is all your fault. So I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from, and I'm going to try to do my best, but I would like some comfort and maybe a little bit more sensitivity around you saying some of these things. Make a request, be direct, still tell them how you feel, but take responsibility for your emotions and not blame it all on someone else. And the scene ends with some pretty awkward editing because Jimmy says, hey, you're actually treating me unfair, and looks kind of mad. But then it jump cuts to Chelsea being all nice and saying, I love you. So I don't know what happened there.
I love you too.
Are you sure?
And before we can wrap up this whole video, we did get an entire 1-minute scene the next episode of the two of them talking about what happened the following morning. And it goes okay. It looks like they're all in a better mood, presumably no longer drunk because, you know, they're probably a little drunk last night. Jimmy says he's sorry, and Chelsea clarifies that, you know, in the future, I just need you to support how I feel. Just listen to me and say your feelings are valid.
I need you to say your feelings are valid. I hear you. I want to just make the
I do hear you. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Which, good on her for being able to articulate clearly what she wants in that situation. I didn't see her actually apologize for anything, or take any responsibility or accountability, or acknowledge that she has a sensitivity, or that she had any parts to play, and this wasn't just all Jimmy's fault. This is only a 1-minute scene, so maybe they cut it out if she did apologize, but just will note that I haven't seen evidence yet that she's actually self-aware of her problem. But maybe it's their first fight and they're all just glad that they don't immediately hate and resent the hell out of each other, and they just want to move on. And with that, we've come to the end of Jimmy and Chelsea's first fight, and also came to the end of the first installment of this series that I might do. I hope I can keep talking about this couple because if you've seen the show, you know there are some pretty juicy things that happen in the future. So I hope you're looking forward to that, and if you did find this video entertaining or helpful in any way, and you value the work or videos that I do on this channel, then maybe you'd be interested in becoming a channel member. Channel members get a few exclusive perks, like being able to watch videos earlier, and ultimately is the best way to directly contribute to me and the growth of this channel as I continue to try to make videos, ultimately with the goal of helping people and their relationships. And until next time, if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy my contents, make sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button, ring the bell for notifications, hit the join button, and every comment helps the algorithm. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.